Hi, Aprajita.
Hi, Hima.
So, welcome to the Pick Me Up series. It's a series where we explore books that lift, heal, and offer companionship. And today we're discussing your picture book, Summers with Dadu, and it's extra special because we have the author herself here with us. So, I'm very honored to be speaking with you, Aprajita. And so, we're going to be looking at this
Thank you for
book.
having me. Thank you.
Uh, we're exploring a conversation about love and loss through this book and how stories can hold all of these emotions at once. And I think this story raises simple but profound questions about love and loss. And just to give a brief overview without giving too many spoilers, the story is through the eyes of a young boy named Anand. And it's about how he has glorious golden long summer holidays at his Dadu's place in his grandfather's house. And it's full of rituals, laughters, and magic. But when Dadu passes away, Anand has to face the shifting landscape of grief and trying to make sense of a world where the same house no longer feels the same. So, Aprajita, what inspired you to write Summers with Dadu?
So thank you for that question. And I think there were several things. And as a writer, it's when we start, writing. It's not like we want it to be around a theme or the story evolves. So for me, there was a story in my heart, the story of my time with my, grandfather, my Baba, as I called him, Dadu, like my paternal grandfather. And that truly was the best time of my life, and I wanted a piece of that to pass on to my own son when he was born. So it was sitting somewhere in my heart. I think there was also, a desire for imagined continuity, because the grandparents, the children today, like the relationships have evolved. So it was also in a way to bring that piece of nostalgia and kind of bring it to me, conversation, like, bring back the grandfather's or the grandparents' house, as that wildcard entry in the summer destinations, like, as you're competing with Europe and the Singapore, like, can we bring bring that destination back? So I think these two. But when I started writing the story, and also this was the time when, I became a mother, and I kind of re-entered the world of picture books. And when I used to read them as a child, like, it was all, in a way, I mean, beautiful books, but all Western. And now there was this rich space of, like, Indian writers, Asian writers, Africa, and I travel quite a bit, Middle East. So I was exposed to this whole new world of picture books, and I realized that there was still a big void in terms of this, conversations that are difficult. Like, there is a lot on big emotions, but not so much on occurrences that are difficult for children to deal with. And I thought grief and death of someone, which kind of, is unfortunately, like, such a huge reality anyways, but also in current times where war, and I work with a peace building organization. So I wanted to look at this subject in a way that parents and, caregivers had a language to speak about it. So for me, it was always like, okay, as the story evolved, can it be about joy of remembering?
Yeah.
So I think that's how it came,
Mm.
how the book was born.
Mm. Yeah, and I think you capture the nostalgia very well, and also the joy of the memory and the love that comes along with grief. Um, and earlier you had mentioned that the book is autobiographical in many ways. Could you tell us a little bit about that and your own relationship with your Dadu?
So yeah, as I say in the book, it was truly my kingdom. I think it was very special. I think, when children are asked who is their favorite person, they're always thinking, like for me, it was always my grandfather, my Baba. And I spent my initial years, like I think since I was 1 to 4 years old, at my paternal grandparents' home. And so in that sense, the book, to the point, where it captures the what summer was. I think it is a love letter to my childhood, like mango stain memories. So it's all my childhood in a way that would make sense and be able to connect for a larger group. I think, and through my own journey with transactional analysis and with the School of You, I started working on myself, and I think there is a part of it which is like, when I lost him, it took me a lot of time to come to terms with this question of, can there be a Dadu's house without Dadu? And I really sat with it for many years.
Mm,
And then as I worked on my own journey of healing and psychotherapy, and also like having this young child with me, I worked on this as to how would I have wanted it to be? What is it that I would have wanted to be told? And given that there was always this feeling that he was looking, he had his eyes on me. And I think the metaphor of star in the sky kind of just came naturally. And so the point of how Anand comes to terms with the loss
mm,
is something that is not autobiographical,
mm,
but to the point of the memories and of the entire experience of the summer with the grandparents. The site of the story is Madarpur,
mm,
which is a place in Bihar that is my native village.
mm.
And so there is the Dargah of the Madar Sahib, and so all those elements are quite
Yeah.
real. Yeah.
Mm, mm. I think the question you mentioned, can there be Dadu's house without Dadu? It it explores the idea of secondary loss in grief. So you've already lost a loved one, and along with that, you also lose so many of the rituals and memories you had, like the treasure hunting for sweets or drawing cold water from the well, and all of those moments are so intimate and loving. So when with the secondary loss, you're also losing all of those magical moments. You're losing your support system. You're losing all future summers with Dadu and a sense of normalcy as well. And I think um, you capture that nuance of exploring that secondary loss. Could you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, and I think that was also in a way like central. I mean, addressing that was central to my own healing journey, and I felt it was very important. I think at like two levels. One is because as young kids, we don't have a sense of like this is not going to continue forever. Everything is forever. Like, if I ask my son, like everything is forever. So how do you gently bring that in, without for it to be a lot for them to be dealing with? And I think for me, like, some of these questions and some of these experiences were my barriers in terms of going back to that place. Like for me, the car entering the courtyard,
Mm,
like at a time when there was no phone, there was no like communication, I would like undoubtedly find Baba sitting on the chair.
mm,
And it's like and I could not imagine driving into that courtyard with an empty chair.
mm.
And I felt there was a need in a way to really also not discount these, but
Yeah.
work with them. And how do you go back and
Mm,
while you provide space to miss that, and remember that
mhm,
with fondness, but at the same time do not deny yourself, or I
mm,
do not deny myself in terms of revisiting and creating new memories, and living with the fondness and the
mm,
warmth of the person in that space. So I
mm,
think the secondary loss was, I think, very, very real, and like it really resonated. And I think that is definitely an element that if we are working on healing and dealing with grief is very important. A lot of times we say, oh, let's not go there, and it was also with my parents. They never insisted because they always thought it will be too much for me to deal with. And I remember the first time I went, I was very very upset. I was crying, but I took my time. And then now it's the same place. When I go back, it's I remember the times there, but there's also like new experiences that you build with other family members. And so it's also like celebrating those days, particular times of the year, which is also something in India. Not like every tradition has a different way. Like we don't want to kind of go back and pay tribute, or in a way remember our ancestors apart from days that are dedicated to them. So I think that was also something for me to work culturally with my own family, both my family of birth and marriage, that it's okay for us to remember and use those occasions to go back and what's our fondest memory, and kind of like talk about that and make it a normalized conversation. Some of it may bring grief, joy, but it is okay for us to feel and not shut those memories away. So I think, yeah, I think it's very to me it was very important, and I really hope that becomes like a dominant part of our conversations around healing and dealing with grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the sense of place is very strong. Like you said earlier, Dadu's house is no longer Dadu. It's the same place, but without the people, without the loved one, it no longer feels the same, even though it physically is the same. And You also mentioned the analogy of stars in your book. I think you said, I felt like the sky whose stars were all taken away. Um, so I think it's a way of making sense of grief. Everybody has their own way. How did this metaphor of stars help you cope and help you soothe?
Yeah, and again, I think this kind of, in a way, developed organically. But I think when I was writing at that point, for Anand, it was like, oh my God, I've lost the most precious, person of my life. And he knew, like, there was a way for me to stay connected with him by
Mm,
identifying him, and I don't know how to do that. So it's like, this double loss. It's the loss of the actual physical person, but it's also the loss of reconnecting or knowing how to reconnect or stay connected. And I think the stars and sky is, I think, something very close to me. I think that's in a way like I relate to it. Uh, so I think that just came up like that, and it's also like as a child, as because the book is for 4+, like, and I was looking at it from like a 4+, 5 year old. It is like you have these big feelings. It's like you have everything or you have nothing. So
mm,
it's almost like now that I don't know what meant to me the most, like nothing matters to me. And so it was that point of realization. And stars also, I think, historically, like or I mean in popular books, literature, or opinion, I mean that it's something that's easy to kind of connect with children, because
mm,
stars like are central to a lot of rhymes, stories. So I also wanted it to be something that was relatable.
mm,
But yeah, I think it came up quite organically. I
mm.
really didn't kind of think through in terms of what that metaphor should be.
I think there's a very loving moment in the book as well between Anand and Dadu, where Dadu explains all the ancestors and family history with stars. So it's a very gentle introduction to that metaphor, and also an idea of how we can still feel that we have our loved ones around us. Yeah. What was your experience writing about your relationship with Dadu, and how did that play out in your process of grief?
Yeah, so I think it took me some time to kind of ready myself in terms of like, because there's so many elements of this story, and what was I comfortable sharing, or what would make sense, or for the rest of the world. And I think for me, the with my own experience with my baba, my dadu, the sense of regret, there was a bit of sense of regret. I never thought those summers were going to end. And so there was like always this I would say just maybe comfort, or almost to the point that this person is a constant. And I think as maybe like as I have vague memories, maybe at 6, 7, 8, where I was like, okay, this summer I have something important to do, and so maybe I'll cut short my trip. Or so it was, that's where like it reflects in the book as well, that you feel you always have more time. So I think for me to deal with that sense of like regret, to let go of it, also in a way to walk with the story and first see whether like how it impacts me. And so I think the story really kind of like, I mean, initially it was a lot about just nostalgia, sadness, a huge sense of loss, to
Yeah.
a point where I could look at, okay, how do I want to what is the place that I want this memory to be, so that I can revisit it with comfort and joy. And I think that's what the book enabled me to do. And I hope, my hope is that it supports everyone to do that. And I think I was also thinking this was also the time when I had like my siblings and people like friends who are having children, or had their parents-in-law or partners, like there were losses around. And I also like looked at in terms of, will the book resonate with people who've never experienced this relationship, unfortunately. And or so I was looking at the three groups: people who have a special bond, people who may never be able to meet their grandparents, and people who have their grandparents now, and are building those bonds. And I think that in itself was quite healing, because there was also a lot of emotions, but also a lot of uh, taking it to a space of joy. I wanted to like, I want, for me, like the goal was that when the child finishes the book, he leaves with a smile, or he or she leaves with a smile. And I think that was the big challenge, and I think that's what took me a long time to write, in terms of how do you uh, reach that space for that this target group without discounting and shutting away the sadness. And so yeah, it's been immensely healing. I think for me, like I've finally been able to come to terms with that loss, and revisit my native place with joy, and going back to those memories and recreating some new ones.
Mhm. Yeah, I can say from my end at least that the second category of I've never met my grandfather, um, but this book showed that with the analogy of stars, that I still found that moment of bond even though I never met him. So yeah, you did reach all those categories, and it's helped you in your grieving process and also others who read it. Yeah. So, the story is told through the eyes of Anand, a child. Why was there a reason you chose this perspective in particular, and how grief is expressed and understood with children, and how adults can talk meaningfully with children about loss?
Yes, because I did feel that there was this like big gap, and also like as I was speaking with fellow parents, and I realized there was this hesitation to talk about anything difficult. Like we had the situation where a teacher transitioned in school, or there was a loss in the distant family, and just hesitation. Like otherwise, parents who are very open to engaging with their children, like just huge hesitation in terms of bringing these topics. And I felt that, like, when I was reading with Anjane, that at different phases, when he was starting school, or like the books really supported us.
Yeah.
And I did feel that the books where you didn't have the adult talking to the child, but it was more like the child coming up with questions, and kind of it's his or her story that resonated most. And I felt that also would be a check for me to make sure that it's not the adult version of the story. So I think that's the reason why I wanted it to be like a child's story, so that it's more relatable. And it's also in a way like something that allows us to have language that is conversational, easy to kind of take into like real situations. So I think that was it. I thought about whether I wanted it to be me, like a girl.
Mhm.
I think that's something that a question I grapple with. But then ultimately, I chose Anand because I think that's easier to pronounce than Aprajita.
Mhm.
So I think, but yeah, I was very sure it was always going to be a child.
Yeah. Mm. Okay, thank you, Aprajita, for your time and sharing your journey about writing this story and about the story itself in such a beautiful, articulate way. And I think what I'm taking back from this conversation is about how when we grieve, we're not only grieving the person, but also so many shared moments and love and joy and magic as well. So, and you said earlier that we have to welcome all of it. Uh, so thank you. And yeah, this is the book. Uh, so it's available online if anyone is interested in getting a companion of their own with this book. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.